Aloha, and this is Taj. And I'm going to talk about the fundamental truth that rules all beings on every level. And that is, to give is to receive. And how we distort this law with our minds and actions. How selfishness is confusing and creating pain and suffering on the planet and in our lives. And to begin with, I'm going to talk about selflessness because I yesterday went on a hike that was quite amazing. And the man that led it mentors children. And it was with a group of, not even children, young people from 8 to 16. And he does it because he has to do it, because it's in him to help mentor children, young boys, basically. And he takes them on these incredible adventures. And I got to experience one and really see who he is and how he is and how these young men learn how to identify plants and bird sounds and feelings, the feeling of the wind, the feeling of the pressure of the energy that's around them. And it was so amazing. And I really got to see this person as this really selfless being. And of course, he would not like me to be talking about it like this, but I have to because it was perfect for my talk. And the way he does things with these kids is so amazing that they're so excited. He has like a point system of when they go for a hike, if they can hide and touch him before he sees them, because it's really getting them to be creative, they get a point. And if he finds them first, they minus a point. And there was a purpose for the point system, but they've all made it to that reward for the point system, and they're still doing it just for the creativity that he's inspired in them. So this felt like and feels like to me really an amazingly selfless enterprise that he's in. So that's what motivated this talk today. So when we look at ourselves and our relationships with our families, our friends, our work, we can see how we affect each person by our way of being joyful or unhappy. We can see this by how each person responds to us. And a lot of times we know that we're manipulating our friends, our family, by how our expression is in relationship to them. So we can see the interconnectedness of our relationships from birth, all the way forward into our experience with work. And on a larger level, we can see how the relationship of how the planets are in our solar system affect every other planet. For instance, how the solar flares that are entering our atmosphere are affecting telecommunications and personally our moods. All kinds of things are happening, and everything is interrelated, from the most minute cell to the largest form of matter. And we think that we're dense. But if you took each one of the cells, if you looked at your hand for a moment, just took one cell, you would see how actually porous it is, that a frequency, blowing wind, will make what's in that cell move. So it has a relationship. So everything from a thought, as we know from Dr. Emoto's work with liquid, to an actual physical action is affecting everything, and they say when a butterfly flaps her wings, it can create a tornado somewhere. So we all know this, and we're so connected because of the porousness of the cells. So when we think about how food affects us, what we're eating, what's going into our cells, what we're excreting, then we look at, going backwards, the animals that are giving to us and we're receiving from them. So all life works on this cycle of eating and being eaten in different ways, maybe not exactly from an animal eating, but even when it comes to dying and being buried and becoming fertilizer and being used to help another plant grow, or being cremated and thrown into the ocean, and the ashes eaten by a fish or turned into something that another animal can use. There's this relationship that creates balance between all of the creatures on the planet, transforming death into life from one creature into another. This relationship between cells has to do with the weather and the global climate. All of our systems, from the largest down to the smallest, from the largest planetary system, are interconnected. So this law of giving and receiving, we may not have thought of it this way before, but it governs every system. For us, this system also has created a system of morality, how we judge what is right and wrong, good or bad. What is morally bad can be completely different based on your culture or religion. When we are truly objective and unconditionally loving, there is no moral agenda. Motivation to survive. We're motivated by self-preservation, to stay alive for the clan in the old days and the families. And in our present day life, we can see how selfishness is challenging and affects many layers of our lives. It'd be interesting to think about that for a minute while I'm talking. So this quality of selfishness, it actually seems to be a stage in development of humans that eventually will be transcended because it's changed from thousands of years ago. But what does it take to transcend this quality? Will it happen at a collective level or a personal level first? We must and will evolve and move forward or upward, however you choose to describe it. We are being squeezed on so many levels so that we can make this quantum leap to move more into love. The media is still focusing on the negative, and many people have gone beyond connecting with this old level of selfishness. But it still seems to be in the world. It's still seen in the world all over. What is responsible? Who is responsible for world poverty and people still being malnourished on our planet? Selfishness is primarily responsible for this. GMOs being thrust upon the world, war still being part of our reality. This is all about selfishness on a big level. We have been designed for this because of our basic monkey mind instinct, our fear. And as we have evolved from the beginning, the monkey mind actions are now a choice. Do we choose to realize the difference between fear at an instinctual level to survive, or fear that we have a choice to feel and make new choices in how to respond to it or react to it? These new choices are based on living in higher frequencies, and everything is made up of frequencies. I know most of you know this, and we're constantly being bombarded with frequencies, whether the lower frequencies dominating the higher or the higher dominating the lower. So how can we transcend this quality of selfishness? The fear of survival and the fear of rejection are a big part of it, and it has to do with other fears as well. Well, first, we have to become aware of how we are acting or reacting, because we're doing it over and over again. And as we begin to act differently, selflessly, we begin to evolve. When we are selfish, we are actually devolving. And as we are selfless, we are evolving. Ultimately, in the long run, and you can each see this in your life, being selfish does not lead to happiness. It actually leads to unhappiness and further desires trying to fix that unhappiness. It is self-defeating, even though it may feel good in the short run. But we're here for many years now. Could be here for 150 years. Why not look at things differently? Step out of society, step out of the old morality. And morality can mean many things to many people. It's not just about religion or sex. It creates guilt and fear. When you trust in yourself and go beyond that, you create, once again, who you are. So It may make you personally happy and ensure that you survive, but selfishness, it's not good for the whole. And that is where we must all be to shift the collective. This addictive quality creates so much inner chaos because it makes life complicated. When we're rooted in selfishness, we have a belief that whatever we are doing will bring an end to our own personal suffering. Giving from a selfless place or giving from a selfish place? If you give money to people to assuage your feelings of guilt, this is from a self-centered place. It's a way of giving that is about having an agenda. If you're not giving with a sense of real gratitude and appreciation, but because you want something, it's from fear or guilt. Perhaps you're afraid of your dark side and unwilling to even look at it. So this is an opportunity, as we bring up these thoughts right now, to take time and really look at your own motivations. Most people really want to move into this place of love, of selflessness. So when giving comes from this place, it will also be received from this place. So if it's not given from gratitude, it won't be received from a place of real gratitude. And then the cycle will continue, and you're going to wonder, why is this going on and on and on? It's because it was not given from your true heart. The other side to this is giving with the agenda of really wanting to receive something from the giving. There's always a manipulation in the giving. The receiver may not even know this, and then the giver will be doubly disappointed. The energy of mistrust is generated from this kind of a relationship. Eventually, anger will occur somewhere as your needs are not met. This can be at very subtle levels, this not having your needs met, because it is challenging to follow the thread of how we are trying to manipulate others to get our needs met. I know this is going to sound challenging, but I'm going to give you an example in a moment. This level of understanding ourselves is very important. This can be challenging to see in ourselves because we want to believe that our motivation is generous and giving when we're really wanting something from another. This is thinking from the mind and not feeling and acting from the heart. So I'm going to use myself as an example. I was playing racquetball with my husband years ago, and I was a pretty good tennis player. And so as we played, every time he'd win, he'd do this thing with his arm like, yeah. And I never would do that because I realized that I didn't want him to feel bad if I would beat him. And because it would just create so much, for me, so much friction, and I didn't want to feel that friction. And I won some games and he won games, and he'd do that every time, because he didn't actually win that many things when we played. So I had stopped playing things with him just because I didn't want to deal with those feelings. So we finished the match and he did the same thing. And I went off, into the women's locker room, and I sat there and I was so angry. And I was really looking at, why was I angry? Was I angry about losing? Well, yes, a little bit. But there was something else. Why would I be so angry, And I realized that I was angry at him for doing that thing. But it wasn't really him I was angry at. It was myself. And when I followed the trail of, felt like a maze, back from what was I angry at to what was the originating cause of it, I saw that I didn't want to feel his rejection of me. That if I was better than him and he felt that he wasn't good enough, there would be this rejection, and ultimately I would be punished. And so really what was happening is I wasn't letting him have his own experience of emotions. Why should I protect him? It's his life and he needs to deal with it in whatever way he can. So really the manipulation was so that I could never feel rejected. And that awareness just made me cry. I just sobbed at how manipulative I was. And then I looked at how manipulative I took it to women, because we learn this. There's no way you could make this up on your own. You have to learn it. And it's the fear of being rejected, the fear of being alone, really basically the fear of survival on a certain level. So it was a really powerful experience for me, and really helped me to grow. And when I got in the car, I told my husband about it, and he was really shocked, and I was really shocked, and it made me really begin to look at myself and my motivations for things. So as you learn how to give without wanting anything in return, which is what I was really learning, just to do what I needed to do and not be afraid. And this is kind of a different angle of it. But if we give without wanting anything in return, that is a gift to be given from the feeling of love, whether it be something the person can use or something they give away to another. You begin to love from a detached space of selflessness. When we do all these things from the state of selflessness, from our heart, our life begins to change. And it may not change in the way that you were initiating or thinking about, but it is connected to higher frequencies, so it is going to change and evolve. It's all about selflessness, because when we act in this way, our life becomes so much more joyful. If you've ever done anything in your life that was done selflessly, and everyone has, you have experienced the currents of joy that stream through your body. So if you're listening to this right now, remember a time when you just did something because it felt really good to do. That's all. Maybe you left money if you were going through, one of the tunnels or one of the bridges in San Francisco or a city somewhere in the United States, and you have to pay money, and you went and you put in, money for 3 people behind you. That's totally selfish and joyful, and you're never going to see those people, but it's going to be good, and you're going to feel good about it. Things like that. There's so many ways that we do little selfless things. So you can feel that joy stream through your body. So remember it now and allow yourself to feel that joy. There's more going on here than you can imagine. This is part of a thing that I'm calling the vertical healing that happens when you connect with your divine nature, because this is who you are. As we raise our frequencies, we assist others in raising theirs. When one begins to give without expectation of receiving, you also stop feeding the victim consciousness on the planet, your own and others. You begin to know who or what it is that's worth giving to, that will continue this cycle of opening. As you support others in this way, you support and empower yourself. And this can be done from the smallest level to the highest level, and can be done in a million different ways. What does this have to do with morality, which is what I was talking to you about in the beginning? To be selfless, you may need to bend the rules that you've been living under to give people the support they need. There is no morality when caring comes from the heart. When we act in this way, our true nature comes forward. When we drop our fear, we will become who we really are, owning the quality of generosity, a quality that we were born with. This quality is about caring about others and nature herself. This quality of generosity moves us into trust, trusting ourselves and others. And this trust is sent out into the world with a very high frequency. We may acquire many things through selfishness. Through selflessness, you will begin to understand your higher purpose. This opens you up to trust and generosity, becoming the constantly generated feeling in your life. Ultimately, in the future, we are headed in the direction like the Aboriginals had in relationship to each other and animals, where the awareness between the two was indistinguishable. We also will operate in a unified consciousness with all beings, and we will no longer experience ourselves as separate, and selflessness will become the norm. somewhere in the future. So at this moment, in this brief stream as a human that we are, realize, how could I be selfless today? How could I just give for the purpose of giving because it's going to make me feel good without the thought of what I would get in return? Because as we begin to do this and as we feel the joy of doing this, we'll do it more and more and more. And that truth, that fundamental truth that to give is to receive, will become emblazoned in our heart once again, because it's already there. We already are this. We've just suppressed this nature by living in the world and listening to others and society. And it's time now for all of us to begin to let go, to begin to feel what is true, and to stop being afraid about how we'd be seen if we do these things. Because as we live this way and let go of everyone's judgment, this planet is going to change as it is changing right now. So thank you so much for joining me today on Transformational Tea.